Welcome.
If we mess.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I need the mask memo. You guys all look like twins.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we both have a black one on, so.
That's, there you go.
There you go. But I think we are live.
Yes.
Speak. Take this off so that it's easier for the audience to hear me. Ready to start?
Yes.
Start.
Yes.
I will call this December 8th, 2020 special meeting of the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All please remain standing for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Here.
Commissioner Vogler,
Here.
Commissioner Boyd.
Here. I will note, in terms of explanation of procedures, that we are being live streamed primarily for public consumption. Obviously, right now the courthouse is closed to the public and will remain closed through January 4th, 2021, assuming that that directive is not extended. During that time, members of the public have the ability to watch via live stream Board of Commissioners meetings. They also have the ability to comment for the record at those meetings by emailing me at mboyd@co.lawrence.pa.us. Any comments that are sent in during either before or during meetings will be incorporated into the official record of the board. I will also note that we're being recorded internally for our purposes in compiling the minutes. That being said, we will move on to row officer reports and comments. Seeing no row officers in the audience today, again, partially attributable to the fact the courthouse is closed. The majority of our row officers at this point are working from home. We'll move on to public comments. I will note that I didn't receive anything before I came down. I just refreshed my email. There are no public comments in my inbox. Again, if someone wants to submit a public comment, mboyd@co.lawrence.pa.us. And we will incorporate that certainly into the record, assuming it comes in during this meeting. If not, it'll be commented for and recorded into the meeting that takes place next week. That being said, we have new business before the board today. We'll do the easy one first, and then we'll jump into the 2021 budget. First is discussion possible authorization to issue the tax revenue anticipation note in the amount of $3 million and no cents. I'll note that we received two proposals for the TRAN note. One was from Huntington Bank, one was from West Banco. Huntington Bank gave us an interest rate of 0.97%, I want to say, and West Banco gave us an interest rate of 2.10%. Additionally, the way that I read West Banco's term sheet was that they would not allow for an early payoff, thus requiring the board to wait to the end of the year to make a payoff and require and obligating the taxpayers to pay the full amount of interest charged, whereas the Huntington Bank note would allow us to pay this TRAN note off early, which then again allows us to save a substantial amount of money on interest payments. The TRAN note is debt that the county takes on at the beginning of the year to finance county operations through the period where we actually start to receive tax revenue. So in January and most of February, county operations are largely financed through what is called a tax revenue anticipation note. Historically, the county's paid down that note before its due date, which is always December 31st of the year in which it's issued. I think this year we had the entire thing paid down by June. But again, this is simply debt that we take on at the beginning of the year to get us through until we start seeing some tax revenue roll in. Any comments or questions for, and the proposal is to accept Huntington Bank's term sheet and move to enter into an agreement with Huntington Bank for the TRAN note at an interest rate of 0.97% at a a total loan amount of $3 million. Questions or comments?
I'll just note that this concept is not unique to Lawrence County. Most counties are in the same situation as we are. Their property tax statements do not go out until February or March. So most counties are going through this process as we speak, this time of year. And that applies as well for many other levels of government, cities, boroughs, townships, et cetera. So nothing unique. It's a standard practice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Thank you for noting that. If there is no objection, we will make that resolution 2020-357.
357.
Term sheet. Next is the introduction and presentation of the preliminary 2021 Lawrence County budget, which is this booklet here. I'll note that throughout the course of the past year, the board has scrutinized every possible expenditure incurred by Lawrence County as it undertakes its operations. And this budget document is the end result of a process that started back in March, looking at historical expenses and historical revenues dating as far back as 2015. I will also state that in this budget, because I know this is what everybody's listening for, there is no proposed tax increase. I'll say that again. We are holding the millage rate constant, and there is no proposed tax increase. The budget itself is comprised, if I can flip the page, of 10 different funding categories ranging from the county's general fund, which funds most activities that the county embarks on, which include the operations of the courts, the operations of the district attorney's office, the operations of our planning department, miscellaneous appropriations that are made as the Board of Commissioners sees fit. It funds all the other various row officers in most county departments, with the exception of Children and Youth Services, which is funded primarily by the state, Mental Health and Developmental Services, which is funded primarily by the state, and Domestic Relations, which is funded primarily by the state, and the 911 division of the Department of Public Safety, which is funded again primarily through the state. They have their own separate funds, given the fact that they take on a significant amount of state revenue as opposed to county tax dollars. Flip to the big document. Oh wait, I'm not even looking in the right spot. I'll note that additionally, with the COVID-19 pandemic and with the current economic conditions that this county faces, we did make a significant amount of cuts to the budget, specifically to the general fund budget, excluding any revenues and expenditures related to appropriated fund balance. So in total, the general fund budget, which again is the county's primary operating budget, if you exclude appropriated fund balance, revenues in that budget were expected to decrease and are expected to decrease by 6.96% compared to what was budgeted in the prior year, or this year currently in 2020. We, as a board, are proposing today spending cuts to the general fund of 7.23% in order to adjust for those revenue losses. And those revenue losses are, number one, our tax revenue is actually down compared to last year, even though the rate's held constant. It's down less than 1%, but it's still dropping, which is alarming unto itself. It's due to decrease in fee revenues, which is to be expected as the COVID-19 pandemic is limiting access to the courthouse, and it's limiting the public's ability to conduct business, not only with governments, but in the private sector as well. On top of that, we're looking at decreased offsets from our different supplemental funds, such as CYS, MHDS, 911, and domestics, as well as numerous other smaller funds. And the rationale for that is number one. Primarily, the state regulations change as such that regulating what we are and we aren't allowed to take out of those funds. So, for example, I know MHDS, they've been paying us rent for the occupation of space over at the Gettings Annex. That's no longer allowed under current state regulations, so we had to take that out, for example, and that amounted to a decent-sized chunk of change. But yeah, ultimately, if you don't count, and again, I'm not counting appropriated fund balance, our revenues are down and our expenditures are also down. That being said, this board, I think, has prioritized growth in Lawrence County. Where can we put our money to make our county a better place, to better attract new families and new businesses, and to better the quality of life for current residents of Lawrence County? And to that end, this budget contains $3,664,096.89 in total funding for economic development, community revitalization, agricultural preservation, and recreational improvement. So that's combined all of our different planning funds, such as CDBG, our fair fund, our demolition fund, county discretionary dollars, our contribution to the Lawrence County Economic Development Corporation, hotel tax revenue, which flows through to the Lawrence County Tourist Promotion Board. That includes the county's contribution to the Conservation District, as well as numerous other endeavors that the county is working on to better quality of life in Lawrence County. The budget includes $1,412,100 in funding for bridge and road repairs, paving, and other transportation projects, which is an increase of 17.48% in funding for the county's transportation funds. These are funds we receive from the state, specifically liquid fuels. Act 13, it's either Act 13 or Act 14, there's a lot of acts. Act 44, Act 89, and some additional supplemental sources of funding. It includes $4,766,718.51 in funding for public safety, crime prevention, and victim protection. So specifically that relates to the Office of the District Attorney, the Office of Public Safety, both the Emergency Management Division and the 911 Division, as well as some miscellaneous grant funding sources that we receive relating to victim protection and relating to a new crisis program that the District Attorney's Office is looking at starting in conjunction with our Mental Health and Developmental Services Office. And speaking of mental health and developmental services, it also includes $8,065,560 in funding for mental health and drug and alcohol problems. The bulk of that funding is received from the state. I believe the total county tax dollars spent to that, so in other words, real estate taxes that we've appropriated for use in the mental health fund only amounts to about $320,000. The rest of that funding comes from state and federal funding sources and miscellaneous grants that the Mental Health and Developmental Services Department is awarded throughout the course of the year. So through funding cuts, and again, this is not counting appropriated fund balance, which I'll touch on in a second, but through spending cuts in excess of revenue loss, we're projecting a surplus, a small surplus when you consider the full budget's roughly $79 million, but a small surplus of $408,040.06, which I think, given the circumstances, I think that's pretty good. Only other thing I'll note is that through early retirement programs, through attrition, and through analyzing different positions which were previously budgeted, but were not filled, the county was able to reduce its full-time labor force by 6.17%. That's budgeted labor force. And we were able to do so without a single employee losing their jobs. And again, that's due to attrition, that's due to retirement incentives, that's due to not filling positions that are open, and that's due to looking at positions that were budgeted but not filled for the duration of the 2020 fiscal year. That being said, I will turn this over to my colleagues. I will note this document. I'll hold it up one more time, just as nice. So like Vanna White. This document will be published to the landing page of Lawrence County's website by the end of the day today for the public to review. It's very comprehensive. In fact, I'd argue it's the single most transparent and comprehensive budget document that the county's published in at least in a while. You'll be able to see specific fund breakdowns, exactly where money goes, what contracts we hold. I mean, it's a 436-page document, and just about everything that could possibly be included in terms of how we spend your money is in it. So I would encourage anybody and everybody in Lawrence County to take a look at it and get back to us with your feedback, your thoughts, your ideas on different ways that we can appropriate county dollars to better Lawrence County. At the end of the day, unfortunately, COVID-19 came along, but at the end of the day, this is generally supposed to be a collaborative process with the citizens of Lawrence County to help identify different priorities that they might have that we might be able to contribute to. I'm hoping this time next year, actually the time leading up to this time next year, that we're able to hold some budget hearings, get some get more feedback from residents, and really work to continue to incorporate them into the budget process. That being said, I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you. First, acknowledge, and I'm sure Dan will do the same, that our chairman did an excellent job in dissecting thoroughly the budget, the procedures, the policies, the funding streams, to a point. How many pages?
437.
437 pages of a budget breakdown that thoroughly explains not only the workings of the departments, but also the cost to have them functioning. It was a mission that you took on, and well done. I have to say that, to get to the, not belabor it again over and over, that you devoted many, many man hours, long nights, weekends to be here to accomplish that. To the point that it is so transparent that anyone wishing to look through it could certainly understand any function of any office, as well as the amount of employees in that office, if they bring in revenues, the expenditures that they have, any special programming grants or anything that comes into this department. So I have to say, and looking back at the very beginning in January and opening the budget to begin with and working that through as best as we could, with the tax increase that unfortunately, it was just inevitable that it had to happen. To get to where we are at now, working through the pandemic, the courts being closed, still trying to continue operations, getting to this point that we are right now, I think that that we are on good, solid footing to get into next year. And I believe that that's essential that we be on good, solid footing, because again, we have no clue the extent of the ripple effect that we're going to face with this pandemic. Rolling out of a vaccine is phenomenal. It getting to the public, getting here in Lawrence County, it is something that's certainly going to be beneficial. We don't know how everyone is going to be in 2021, from businesses to mental health issues to crisis issues, domestic violence, child abuse, substance abuse, businesses failing, those that are struggling to stay open with the changes, with pivoting. I think pivoting is a word that was used earlier in a meeting that I was in, being able to pivot the way that we have at the different points in the year that we have had to do that. And the the funding that we received from the CARES Act that allowed us to do different things, that allowed us to support the small businesses, the municipalities, the communities, the fire departments in those endeavors. That was our one-time shot in the arm. And so we still need to be cognizant of the fact that we go into 2021 not knowing if there will be an additional stimulus, when it will happen, what will go on. We don't know what 2021 brings. So I say thank you. I appreciate the effort, the amount of time, the dedication to getting this done to the extent that it has been done, because next year is going to be a difficult year as well. So to have it laid out there as plainly as it is for not only ourselves here, our employees, the row officers, department heads, anybody involved with county government, to have that here, as well as for the citizens of our community. I think it's job well done, and it will certainly be our handbook going into 2021. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you
It
for
was-
that.
You know, it was, at the end of the day, it was a team effort,
Um,
between, you know, the various, the commissioners, the county administrator, our conversations with different row officers, different department heads. You know, you don't put together a document like that without some collaborative efforts, internally.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So much of what Loretta said means I'll have less to say, because you said a lot of things I agree with. Yes, it was a collaborative effort, but you did most of the heavy lifting. And you did put a lot of hours into this, weekends, evenings, nights. I mean, my goodness, I know some nights I was definitely home sleeping and you were here working, no doubt about it.
Right.
But I also, and we've had discussions, you didn't work in a vacuum. You did consult and have conversations with the department heads and the row officers. And you touched on this, Mr. Chairman, but the state law requires that we introduce a budget, but we do not adopt it immediately. By law, it has to be on public display, as you noted, for is it 20 or 21 days? I can't recall
It's
which.
the 21 earlier today.
Okay. Accordingly, and again, Chairman Boyd noted that the Board of Commissioners will adopt the budget then on, at this point in time, December 29 at a public meeting. There is an opportunity during this 3-week period for some revisions to be made. We are capped to what extent we can make a revision in terms of whether it be a specific line item or the budget overall. So we do have a little bit of flexibility, and I suspect that perhaps we'll hear from a couple department heads or row officers asking for some, what I would hope will be minor revisions.
Right.
Because as you correctly pointed out, this budget does not anticipate any reduction in the existing workforce. And we've done a good job during the course of the year of not creating very many new positions. That has to be done by salary board, and I can't recall us doing that to any large extent. And if we did, some of these things may have been offset by positions not being filled. Anyhow, so much of what we do here as a county, and this applies to all 66 other counties, you know, so much of what we do is mandated by the Commonwealth. Perfect example, the conduct of an election, and this was the busiest election I've ever witnessed in my time here in terms of the workload and the volume that it placed on our election department. But the state mandates that the counties carry out the election, and there's a cost for that. It costs money to conduct elections. A lot of what we do here, to be very blunt, is driven by crime. I mean, we have a court system. Now, the court system oftentimes handles civil matters and oftentimes handles good things like adoptions. But a large part of what they do is criminally related, which means we have to have a jail, which means we have to have an adult probation office and a juvenile probation office and a district attorney and a public defender and magisterial district judges. If we didn't have crime, we would have very little need for most of those things. So a lot of what we have to do is based upon the fact that some people choose to break the law. We've noted a couple things in the past, and I know you're probably tired of me saying this, but it bears repeating, in that as a county government, the law stipulates that we, and Mr. Boyd touched on this, that we can only levy one tax and one tax only, and that's the property tax. A school district, a city, a borough, or township, they all can also levy property taxes, but they also have the ability to tax people's wages and income. We do not have that ability. It's probably a good thing we don't, but it does limit us to that property tax. Mr. Boyd talked about transportation, and I appreciate him doing that. And this has been a great year in that we focused a little bit on our direct role in transportation, being the 27 bridges that we own and maintain throughout the county. We take a lot of pride in those bridges. And fortunately, we're able to utilize liquid fuel dollars from the Commonwealth. But I do want to make it clear again, and again, forgive me for saying it because I say it probably every second meeting, but we do not own or maintain any roads as a county. We do not. I just want to make that clear. Mr. Boyd talked about the fact that the budget will be probably within the next, I don't know,
2 hours.
few hours, we'll get it put onto the county's website. In a normal year, when people could enter and exit this
Right.
building, this document would be in the commissioner's office for people to come in and look at.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say we can't allow that right now because of this.
Mhm.
But as noted, it will be on display on the county's website. What I particularly appreciate Mr. Boyd doing that has not been done in the past, and that's one reason why the budget is somewhat thicker than normal, is that he has taken the time to include narratives to talk about what each particular office does and where these funds are coming from and why they're being spent the way they are. And again, that took a lot of effort to pull all that together. I guess I would offer to any new commissioner, and you've both done it, probably the best way to learn is two good ways to learn about county government. One is to do what you've done. Secondly, and you've also done this, is to spend the time needed with the other elected officials and the other department heads and the courts just to see what they do on a day-to-day basis. And to your credit, you've both achieved that this year. We're fortunate. I guess I've been fortunate to have been able to work with a lot of good commissioners in the past. But we're fortunate right now. Both of my colleagues have certainly demonstrated an absolute work ethic when it comes to the role that they play as commissioners. And I admire them for that. I appreciate that. As I go through this, am I going to like everything? No, there'll be things in here I may not like. But as a whole, what I've seen so far and what you've rolled out, the fact that we're balanced and the fact that we're holding the line on the
Yes.
property tax, and we're still able to offer to the citizens of this county the services that we offer, most of which are mandated by the Commonwealth. We're still going to be able to do that. So again, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, understanding that there might be a few revisions between now and the end of the month, but appreciate all your efforts and the efforts of Commissioner Spielvogel and the efforts of Mr. Vanasco and then everyone else who had input into this as well. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you. Before we wrap up, I forgot to touch on one point relating to the budget that I do want to get around to just because I think it's important. And that's that through a combination of tough choices that we had to make throughout the year as a board that resulted in substantive savings, as well as the remaining federal CARES Act stimulus that we did not send out directly into the community, that we took to recoup some of our costs relating to the pandemic. The county is able to fully replenish the rainy day fund in the amount of $3,913,198.31. But I did just want to note that because I think that just goes to show our commitment to making sure that the county is fiscally stable and fiscally sound. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think this board believes strongly that the first priority of county government should be to provide the highest quality services at the lowest possible cost to our taxpayers. And I think that through this budget, we're able to achieve that for the 2021 fiscal year.
And may I, please? You know, we all touched on it, but I think it bears a little, just slightly a little more discussion. Given we focused on the property tax revenue that we receive, and when there is economic growth in a community, directly related to that is growth in revenue. And we did see a little bit of that this past year. The natural gas power plant in North Beaver Township is online, and consequently they are now a taxpayer. And we realized revenue from that. But it proves that the more growth we have in such as that, the more it helps our bottom line. And I think the folks in the county need to realize, and we've talked about it before, but it bears repeating, that as a board, and this was true with my predecessors, but it's also true with the three of us, we're doing as much as I think we're able to do as it relates to economic enhancement. And I'll go down the list real quick. Mr. Boyd serves on the Lawrence County Economic Development Corporation's Foundation Board. Commissioner Spielvogel is a member of the Tourist Promotion Agency Board of Directors. I sit on the Conservation District Board. Those are some boards we sit on here within the borders of this county. Regionally, and both of you were involved in things just today in the region. Commissioner Spielvogel is on the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance. We're all three on the Southwest Pennsylvania Corporation Board. Mr. Boyd is on the executive committee. I serve on the Regional Industrial Development Corporation, and I represent the county up at the Northwest Planning Commission. So we're going to continue to do all we can beyond the walls of this building to try to enhance the economy. And it necessitates a public-private partnership, I believe. But I give my colleagues credit for taking on those roles and making sure that Lawrence County has a seat at the table. But I think the bottom line, we've had discussions about this, is we need to zero in on business attraction and retention. And I trust you'll both agree with me, because I think we've all said in the past, that's the bottom line. That helps everybody. And I know in your role at the Economic Development Corporation, you're advocating that very strongly. And I know the role you play at TPA, which is a little bit different, but still, it brings people in, and they see our county and they spend money here. So anyhow, I didn't mean to ramble on, but I appreciate your letting me do that.
No, absolutely. And I'll note this in terms of economic development. Through the county's contribution, which we contribute $100,000 a year to Lawrence County Economic Development Corporation, that allows the corporation, the Economic Development Corporation, to tap into additional funding from the Hoyt Foundation. And I was so excited to see in their budget for this year, they are including 2 new part-time positions with a focus directly on business retention and business outreach, which is, I think, the first time that a substantive effort has been put forth relating to business retention and relating to business outreach by the LCEDC in recent years. And so we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
It takes time. I think we've had, all things considering, a decent amount of success for the year in terms of economic development. With the jewel of that being Stonecrest Business Park, which is moving forward very well. In fact, there'll be a vote before the Board of Commissioners here within the next 2 meetings relating to that development. And that'll bring on an additional anywhere from, I believe, 500 to 1,000 jobs for Lawrence County, which is incredible considering the fact that the current number of jobs in Lawrence County amounts to about 29,000. So that's a sizable chunk of new employment opportunities for our residents. But you know, it's been It's been one hell of a year. I can't imagine, when we jumped into these roles, none of us.
We didn't see it coming.
You got two newbies and a seasoned pro.
Yes.
And I can't imagine that any of us were thinking in January 6th, the road that we would have gone down to get where we are today.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So I will say this, I think formally, in my mind, concludes the year. I think this is and we obviously still have procedural things that go on throughout the month of December. We still have some loose ends to tie up, but to me, the finalization of the budget, for the next fiscal year is sort of officially what bookends, every year. And I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Joe Vanasco, our interim chief clerk. And usually when you accept an interim position, it's 3-4 months. Joe's been here, now for almost a year, and he's done a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Our office staff, Vanessa Bayless and Chris Vanasco have done a tremendous job in supporting the activities of the board, and then our row officers. You couldn't ask our row officers and our department heads and our court administration. I don't think you could ask for a better group of individuals anywhere.
Right.
Working to support county operations and move the place forward.
I have to add, and my family will probably get upset with me for saying this, but you develop the relationships. It's almost like, because just like you said, Dan, there's things that you agree to and that you don't agree to, and there's differences, and it's almost like and Joe's smiling because he knows my family, but and I'm sure all families are like that. You have your major disagreements, your differences, you shout it out, you do what you need to do, and at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I love ya, let's carry on, and you do, and I just being here, you come into it expecting something, and then it turns into something else, and I have to again thank you, Dan, for your years of experience and being such a guiding force for us. That it's so good, having that knowledge there. Morgan just, I don't think the two of us combined could keep up with him.
I don't know about that.
It's just, I just am thankful. I just want to that's what I'm getting to, is that thank you to everybody here. If there's anybody that is, watching us now, trust that we've gone through those growing pains. We've cut our teeth and we'll continue to do so, but it's we always grapple with what is best, number one, for the citizens, and number two, economic-wise, money-wise, budget-wise. I love the flow chart. I have to say, I looked at that, and it's starting it off, and anybody coming through would see that. I missed the page. It has the flow chart on it. It starts off with the citizens of Lawrence County. Absolutely, I think that's phenomenal, because that's who it starts with, our citizens. We have to keep that in mind, that we have an obligation to them to do the best for them, and to be very, very conscious of the fact that we're spending their dollars. So, yeah, thank you again.
Any additional comment before we wrap this up?
Other than the vote.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll make the resolution. So resolution 2020-358.
Oh, okay, you also have that one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we got two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Formally introducing the 2021 budget for public review, where we'll sit on review, as Dan mentioned. Normally it would sit on review up in our office physically, where I imagine there'll probably still be a copy, it just won't be accessible. But we'll have this up, we'll have the full document up on the website by the end of the business today. And it will be there until December 29th of 2020, which is when this board will vote to adopt. So with that being said, I will take a motion to, I guess,
Did you want to do this one first?
yes,
Right.
yeah,
I'm
We have to
sorry.
go through the procedures to amend the agenda, or it's on the
Yeah,
agenda,
we're
I wouldn't wanna do.
We're gonna need to, I think we're gonna need to amend the agenda. I don't know if we necessarily have to.
I don't think we do.
Yeah,
because-
okay, just because it's, okay.
It's on the thing, it's
Sure,
a resolution.
right.
We'll just jump into it.
Go ahead.
Someone wants to file a lawsuit per procedure, let them have at it.
Okay.
First on deck, we have resolution 2020-357. Fast forward to the end here. I'm not reading this entire thing. I'm just not doing it. What it does is it allows us to enter an agreement with Huntington Bank, tax revenue anticipation note, in the amount of $3 million at an interest rate of 0.97%. And that debt will come due, assuming it's not entirely paid off, by then, December 31 of 2021. And I would imagine we'll probably have it paid down by June, July.
Mhm.
But we do need to take out that tax revenue anticipation note.
Yes.
So I'll take a motion to approve resolution 2020-357.
So moved.
Second.
With motion second, is there any discussion during non-question on the motion? Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And resolution 2020-358. Now therefore be resolved by the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners that in accordance with section 1782 of the county code, proposed budget is hereby introduced for public review until December 29th, 2020, which is the date set for final adoption. So I will take a motion to approve resolution 2020-358.
So moved.
Second. Take a motion to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Question on the motion. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, any additional public comments that were received through the duration of this meeting will be entered into the minutes as though they were received at the meeting. I'm not getting the best cell phone service right now, or I try to go through and pull it up on my phone. But rest assured, any comments that came in will be recorded. That being said, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Questions on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Lawrence County Board of Commissioners is adjourned, and the budget document will be on the website for the close of business today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there should be an end, don't just X out, there should be an end, red button. There you go. Just shut it down.